Hello all, welcome to the Basics.Academy. This is Smart Contract Security, Fundamentals and Auditing, a 5 units, 3 credit course in the BSc Blockchain Technology program. Let's get into it. Today we are going to start Unit 3, Common Smart Contract Vulnerabilities, in which first we are going to cover reentrancy attacks, how a single external call can drain a contract and the 3 defenses that stop it. What we will cover today. First, the core idea, highlighting why an external call is dangerous. Secondly, the vulnerable pattern in which interaction happens before the state changes. Third, the attack flow, that is the malicious receive loop. And at last, the 5 variants starting from single function call, cross function call, cross contract call, read only reentrancy, and hooks based reentrancy. And at last, we are going to look at the defense mechanisms starting from check effects interactions pattern, or in short CEI, then reentrancy guard, thirdly pull over push, and at last the detection of reentrancy can be identified using Slither and the auditor's checklist. SWC 107, that is the vulnerability that launched an entire discipline. What is reentrancy? In one line, it is defined as a contract that makes an external call to an untrusted address before it finishes updating its own state. So, the callee can call back in and act on stale data. The vulnerable pattern, interaction before effects. In this withdraw function, first the interaction happens and then the state is updated. Here, the order is the bug. That is, the ETH is sent before the balance is zeroed. Between these two lines, the attacker's code runs and balances of attacker still shows the full amount. So what exactly happens? When we do dot call or a low level call, it hands control to the recipient. If it turns out to be an externally owned account, then there is no harm. However, if it is a contract, then its receive or fallback executes now. So what happens? The state is still pre-withdrawal. That is, the mapping has not been updated. This balances mapping is not yet updated during the interaction. So the guard passes again, and at last this step is repeated until drained. Each re-entry withdraws the same balance over and over. The attack flow. The attacker first deposits 1 ETH such that the balances of attacker becomes 1, then calls withdraw function. This withdraw function internally calls or sends 1 ETH via call value. This goes to the attacker's receive function, which fires and calls withdraw again. When it calls withdraw again, the balance is still 1, so it pays again, and this loop goes on repeating as long as the victim's contract balance is not zeroed. This is the attacker contract. Inside the receive function, we check that the balance is greater than or equal to 1. If yes, then re-enter or call victim.withdraw. So what exactly happens? One transaction does many withdrawals. The number one defense mechanism against reentrancy attack is using the check effects interactions pattern. Let us look at single function reentrancy. Here we have withdraw function, which makes an external call first and then updates the state balances. This can be fixed by just moving the state update before the external function call. That is, prior to making the external interaction, first we update the state, then make the external interaction. So this is known as checks effects are nothing but state updates, and interactions is calling external contracts. In checks, we validate the input. Under effects, update the own state, then talk to the outside world or the other contracts. Zeroing the balance first means the reentrant call finds nothing. The guard now fails on the second pass. This single reordering neutralizes the classic attack. The second variant of reentrancy is cross-function reentries. Check effects interaction on one function is not enough when two functions share the same state. Here we have two functions, withdraw and transfer, that shares one mapping, which is the balances mapping. So what is the trick here? During withdraw's callback, call transfer to move the not yet zeroed balance to a second account. From here, we make an external call, and from within the external call, we call transfer function. While doing so, we transfer our existing balance to our own second account. Then, at last, our balance becomes zero. So ideally, what we have done is, we have moved the not yet zeroed balance to a second account. What is the result of this? Funds are withdrawn and as well as transferred. The balance is spent twice. What is the fix for this? The fix is to apply check effects interaction across all functions sharing state, or to protect the whole group with one mutex. What exactly is this one mutex? We are going to cover that when we talk about reentrancy guard. Third variant is cross-contract reentrancy. What exactly is cross-contract reentrancy? Two contracts, example a vault and its accounting or rewards module, read the same underlying state. Important thing to remember here is, a guard on one contract does not protect the other. How exactly it breaks? The attacker re-enters through the sibling contract during the callback, because the contract has its own unlocked guard. The mutex on the first contract never trips. Again, mutex comes into picture when we talk about reentrancy guard. Here we are having two contracts, a vault and let us say an accounting or rewards module contract. If both of these contracts depend on a single state variable, and if you have applied mutex on the vault contract, that will not protect the accounting or rewards module contract. The important thing to remember as auditors are, the guards or mutex are per contract, they are not per system. A non-reentrant modifier only locks the contract it lives on. Secondly, you must map the trust boundary. Identify every contract that reads or writes the same state and treat them as one unit. If there are 4 contracts that read or write the balances mapping variable, then you should treat them as a single unit. What is the mitigation? You must finalize all shared state before any external call. As said before, if there are 4 contracts that accesses the balances mapping, then you must finalize all shared state across these 4 contracts before making any external call, and share a single guard or lock across the system where possible. Doing so, you can mitigate the cross-contract reentrancy. The fourth variant of reentrancy is read-only reentrancy. You may say that a view function looks harmless. What will happen if we are just reading from the blockchain state, as it changes nothing? But imagine if it is called in between a transaction while the state is temporarily inconsistent. At that time, it returns a wrong value that other protocols trust. What the attacker does, the attacker removes liquidity. The pool sends the ETH via callback. Now, in between this callback, the reserves are updated but the supply is not. During this point, imagine a view like get virtual price returns a skewed value. And then they exploit a lending market using that price misvalues collateral. So what is the fix for it? You must guard the view function too. That is, expose a read that reverts when the contract is mid-execution. If you have balance of function, which is a view function, then mid-execution you must not call balance of, instead add one another function, condition balance of, and implement non-reentrant on that view function, such that mid-execution it will call check balance of, and if it tries to re-enter, that will then reward the transaction. The fifth variant of reentrancy is hook-based reentrancy, ERC777 and callbacks. Tokens can call you back. That is, ERC777, it fires tokens received or tokens to send hooks on every transfer. The hook is arbitrary code. For example, have a look at the tokens received hook. What it does, it calls pool.swap. From here, the code can again re-enter into the same execution path. Safe transfers aren't inert. That is, a token transfer becomes an external call to a attacker controlled code. What's the real impact of this? Uniswap V1 pools holding IMBTC were drained via the transfer hook. What is the defense mechanism? You must treat every token transfer as an external call. Every token transfer as an external call. Apply check effects interaction and a non-reentrant guard around any function that moves tokens, even ERC20 looking ones, since ERC777 is backward compatible. Update balances and effects before the transfer, never after. Let's put all the three defense mechanisms together. First is our check effects interactions pattern, in which we update the balance first and then make the external call. Second is the mutex or reentrancy guard. It is a boolean lock set on entry and cleared on exit. OpenZeppelin's non-reentrant modifier makes re-entry reward. It is essential when check effects interaction alone can't cover cross-function paths. Then the last, pull over push. Don't push funds inside complex logic. In our withdraw function, we had message.sender.call. Instead of that, we could have made use of withdrawable balance is equal to balances of message.sender, and then we would have written a different sweep function or get my tokens function. From within that function, we would have made that external call. Doing so, even if the attacker would have re-entered into that function, the attacker could have got only his or her tokens. So what pull over push does? It records what is owed and let users withdraw in a separate isolated transaction. It removes the external call from the critical path. So CEI is the baseline, the guard is the safety net, and pull payments remove the risk entirely where feasible. OpenZeppelin's reentrancy guard. All you have to do is import OpenZeppelin's reentrancy guard, then inherit your contract from reentrancy guard. Wherever you have external calls, just add the non-reentrant modifier on those functions. So how it works? a status flag flips to entered on the way in. When the first call comes in, the status flag is set to entered, and any re-entry reverts until it clears. That is, whenever withdraw is called for the first time, status is set to entered. And when the attacker again tries to call withdraw, the non-reentrant modifier checks that the status flag should not be entered. If it is entered, then the transaction rewards. That is, the second call rewards. What is the cost? One storage slot return per call, which is small, deliberate gas overhead. However, it is not a silver bullet. Reentrancy guard is applicable per contract only. It does not stop cross contract or read only reentrancy. What is the rule of thumb? Non-reentrant plus check effects interaction together. The modifier is the backstop, not a license to skip the ordering discipline. So, use check effects interaction pattern plus non-reentrant. Why are we even talking about the reentrancy attack? Because in 2016, the DAO hack happened due to reentrancy bug in the DAO contract that led to a loss of $3.6 million, 3.6 million ETH, which amounted to approximately $60 million. That hack led to the split of the Ethereum blockchain into two independent networks, Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. What is the lasting lesson? It reshaped Ethereum governance and made CEI first a permanent industry habit. A decade later, reentrancy variants still ship in production. How to detect reentrancy from the auditor's lens? First and foremost, find all the external calls such as .call, .transfer, token transfer, or low-level call. Then check state after them. Is any storage written after an external call? If yes, that becomes your red flag. Trace the shared state. List every function or contract that touches the same variable. This is how you detect reentrancy in a smart contract. At last, let's go through our review checklist. First is no state writes after an external call. Second, non-reentrant on every value moving function. Whenever in a smart contract you have a function that moves value, add the non-reentrant modifier on that function. Third, CEI or check effects interaction holds across all functions sharing state. Fourth, view functions used by others are guarded. And fifth, token transfers are treated as external calls. ERC 777 aware. Let us summarize or what are the key takeaways from today's lecture. Reentrancy in one page. First, it is an ordering bug. An external call hands control to untrusted code before your state is finalized. Second, we have looked into the 5 variants: single function reentrancy, cross function, cross contract, read only, and hook based reentrancy. Then we discussed about 3 defenses: CEI pattern, reentrancy guard or mutex, and pull over push. At last, we looked into how to detect reentrancy, check for any state updation after an external call, that is the signal. However, Slither automates that search. Slither is a static code analysis tool which we are going to use in our next unit. This sums up the first lecture of Unit 3, Common Smart Contract Vulnerabilities, in which we have looked into reentrancy in depth. In the next lecture, we are going to discuss about arithmetic and data handling bugs, specifically overflow, precision loss, and unchecked return values. That wraps up this session. If it helped, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Questions? Drop them in the comments below. See you in the next lecture.